Today's conversation is about what winning and losing actually teach us. Michael, Brian, David, and I explore why losing often shapes us more than success, why progress comes from showing up imperfectly, and why celebrating effort matters more than chasing outcomes. We talk about turning competition into collaboration, the role of community in a meaningful life, and how play, curiosity, and purpose keep us moving forward. This is a conversation about taking action, finding your why, and learning to enjoy the process as much as the destination. Because a life built with play, purpose, and passion isn't something you achieve, it's something you live. All right. Welcome back to the Michaels with Three Names podcast. To be more aptly named or professionally named in the future. Um, we're right between Christmas and New Year's. I'm going to get this conversation out quickly as well. I mean, we were just beginning to talk about the power of losing, right? The gift of losing and not growing and not winning. Actually, I shouldn't say not growing, but I think there's lessons to be learned from sitting still. There's lessons to be learned from being knocked on your ass and from failure or losing. And we all know that there's probably more room for growth and more room for fulfilling our potential when we're in those spaces where we're more likely to be knocked down a peg than the big fish in the small pond.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's part of the dichotomy of it, right? We all want to win, but winning is not where we gain the most. Really, winning is, yes, some words of affirmation, right? So that can go back to your love language. It can be a signal that you're on the right path, but winning most of the time is just a stroke of the ego, right? And to be able to say, you know, I went with this into, well, I guess it's a stroke of the ego in sports, but some of it plays into the real life. But when you set your intention for something and you say, that's what I want, and if you get it, you're like, yes, I'm aligned. My intention was fulfilled. But if you don't get it, you it's not actually losing, and I love that reframing of it, right? It's just feedback, right? It's opportunities missed. It's like, okay, well, where could I have done better, right? You're only it's an opportunity to grow whether you see it or not, and that's where that humility, being able to sit with the loss, getting your ass handed to you. I was handed 6-0 both sets in tennis. I mean, it was just flat out. So it challenges me, right? But then I say, okay, well, as long as I'm losing, I am getting better, right? I don't get better playing somebody that I can beat easily, right? I only get better playing somebody that's above my level. And with that, you risk getting your ass handed to you. So you put your ego aside for a second and you say, okay, I can lose at this. And taking that bold step and putting yourself out there and allowing yourself the chance to possibly win or possibly lose, it's only growth. So,
I think there's a second layer though that is really important to highlight because what we're we're framing this as sort of a black and white issue. You either win or you lose. And I'm not saying that there's a third option that you tie. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is if you look deeper in those two areas, I think there's growth to be found from winning and there's maybe not growth from losing. It doesn't always provide the opportunity. I think that's the what. You either won or you lost, right?
mm,
Did you win or lose? Yes, I won, then we lost. But why? And
Mm,
I play a lot more basketball than tennis, and I remember the video, a couple years ago I saw where every missed shot provides an opportunity to analyze why did you miss that shot? How did you miss that shot? Did it go long? Did it go I mean, you could probably apply that
mm,
to a lot of
mhm,
sports where you're trying to put a ball in a space, right?
mhm,
Soccer, tennis, whatever. Did it go too long? Did it go too short? Did it go too left? Did it go too right? Those are basically the only 4 options. And then the next time you hit that shot, the next time you kick that ball, hit it with the racket, you adjust just a little bit, and it's amazing that our
mhm,
brain can, our eyes can take in that and immediately make that change. I mean, it's the power of the neural cells we have within our head, to be able to do that so quickly, right? Like
mhm,
micro adjustment.
mhm, mhm,
But that reframe, I think, is where the power is. And so I do agree 100% that if you're if you're the one on the winning side 6060, you probably need a different league to play in to challenge you to grow, right?
mhm,
But it just because you're winning, I mean, and how you win, right? Also, not just that you won, but how you win. I mean, if you win 6-5 versus 6-0, then you still won, but or lose. I mean, you'd be basically taking away from that. And I think I'm highlighting this because I think it's something that often we don't on the winning side. We celebrate the win, but we don't really celebrate what went well to get us there, what didn't work, right? What were
mhm,
the failures along the way, even though we won, right? And we just look big picture like we won. And I'm wearing a Denver Broncos jacket right now. They got to represent here in Denver, and they're going to win their conference, right? You look at the stats and the Avs are doing amazing. The Nuggets are doing amazing. It's a great year to be in Denver from a sports standpoint. But we were just at a game, and I mean, Jokic has crushed the last couple games. I mean, talk. I mean, he's not going to surpass like Jordan or whatever, but like greatest of all time kind of performances, like 56 points, 15 rebounds, 15 assists. I mean, just crazy. But we just saw him a week ago, and he didn't do anything, right? And they lost. They got like blown out.
mhm,
And so, those missteps along the way, I think are opportunities even when you win.
mm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it brings up a couple points for me. It just makes me think about, again, that journey to the win or the loss, right? I will admit to it, right? When I get competitive, because it's my first season playing in this league, I'm just looking for that win, right? My goal is just to get that, right? And it's part of my growing is to not be fixated on that end result. That and it applies to life. Be present in the journey to a destination, right? Because the destination is not guaranteed, right? But if you can enjoy the journey, you can enjoy that match that I played. It doesn't matter whether I win or lose, I'm going to come out technically winning, right? Because I've gotten more positive enjoyment, play, and movement throughout the process that irrelevant of that indicator at the end, I still enjoyed the process. And I would love to hear your thoughts on it. And maybe I twisted too much, but it's been a concept that I've been hearing about with children, right? The idea is to celebrate the effort, not the result, right? It's the same thing for some of the most legendary basketball players of all time, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan. It was their commitment to the work, getting to the gym early and putting in those reps early every day. They were committed to that, that the winning was just a byproduct. but they fell in love with the process. They fell in love with the identity of just being the person that gets there the earliest, gets their day started right, puts in the work, watches their food, and is just relentless. And it's been a recurring theme coming back to me recently, but it's just I feel like the biggest winners or champions of their time or of their generation or of your friends, your circle, are the ones that do the small things most consistently the longest. Because we all know roughly what we should be doing. It's just, can we keep it consistent enough that the universe understands that identity and really doesn't get confused and says, oh no, this is day in and day out. This is what you live for. This is what he's doing. This is his purpose. This is his intention. And then that grows and grows. So,
Yeah, I just wrote an article yesterday called the Hidden Foundation of Achievement: Why Your Why Matters More Than Your What. Why your not why matters more than your what.
mhm,
And
mhm,
what you're talking about, those early hours in the gym and putting in the reps, I think, that can be applied across all things. I think the important things to me to highlight are, it's not practice makes perfect, it's perfect practice makes perfect, right? And
mhm,
so it is that they're not just spending the hours in the gym shooting at the basket, they're doing drills, right? They're doing the boring stuff that people quit on because they don't enjoy to your point, they don't enjoy the process.
mhm,
It's not
mhm.
play for them. It's not a labor of love. It's just labor. It's just something that they don't love doing because it's boring. It's the basics. It's the fundamentals. But then when you look at the highlight reels, even, they didn't really do. Rarely is it something that is extraordinary. It's something that they just dialed in a fundamental so well that they can do it better than anyone else. It's, and in any sport, right? I mean, you look at the top and, like, it's what they're teaching kids in the first year, right? How to swing the racket and footwork and these kinds of things in tennis, for example, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And how to serve. And, like, they've had so many perfect reps that they can do it better than anyone else. And I think if they didn't have that, well, if they didn't have the why, they wouldn't persist. But if they didn't, this is something when you asked from, the father standpoint, what I'm thinking with our son, I was just thinking about this and said to Heather earlier this week, I'd like Bennett to play basketball and soccer, try those out. I mean, that's what he's kind of playing now, and I'd love to be his coach at some point in the, when he begins to play somewhat competitively. And I was a soccer referee for 35 years, and I'd love for him to referee soccer if that's something he wanted to do as well. But I think one of the things that I was reflecting on is the why. Like, I started refereeing at 13 years old because I was curious about getting out on the field and making some money on the weekends and, enjoying the game from a different perspective. I didn't set out to referee the World Cup or in Major League Soccer or anything like that. Major League Soccer wasn't even a thing when I started in
Yeah,
1990.
yeah.
But I have many colleagues who have refereed at the greatest world stage. Even just a couple weeks ago, they were refereeing an international FIFA tournament in Europe, I think. And then we have the World Cup coming up this year, or this next year here in the States, and I'll know or I'll know some of the guys who are involved in that from the U.S. And I reached a point where I was rising up in refereeing, and it wasn't as fun anymore, and it became competitive. And instead of coming up as a sort of mentor group, a tribe where it was like, if one of us succeeds, we all succeed, and, like, for us, there's a greater likelihood that we all will, or none of us will, than like fighting each other to be the one. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, a handful of the guys ended up in Major League Soccer and ended up as FIFA referees. But I think so. The advice I would give Bennett is just a reality check. is the potential even there to be great? And I think we're sometimes unfair to kids telling them how great they are, giving them the feeling that they're winning when they're really losing. They really don't. They're never gonna have that skill. You can just tell, that, and it's not all natural ability, right? There are some things that just, those early hours in the gym, it can make you better. But if your goal is to be the best at something and there's only one best, for example, in the time period, like an Olympic athlete or something, winning the gold medal, um, I think a reality check of like, yeah, you're really not that good. Um, you're never gonna be, that. So, but does that really change anything? If you're enjoying the journey and not the destination, then it doesn't really change anything. Right? There's no difference between someone who's just playing out on their local basketball court or starring in the NBA if you're just enjoying playing the activity.
Yeah. 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 I would even give some different perspective on it if you're open to discussing it. I think that so I'm a recovering perfectionist, right? I'm a Virgo. That's where the stars were aligned, and I tend to I had the tendency to only take action when I had all the information, all right, whatever that meant for me at the time. Now you gave a reference to a saying that floated around for a long time as we grew up, right? It's not practice makes perfect, but perfect practice makes perfect. And what just kept ringing for me is the studies now are showing, right, a imperfect plan executed consistently will outperform a perfect plan executed inconsistently, right? So yes, there is a bit of temperament and maybe of celebrating a child in a false way or maybe giving them too much credit. There are ways to celebrate them without per se misguiding them and telling them that they're winning or that they did an awesome job or that you know to say that the painting was beautiful and maybe you're like, no, it actually looks like shit. I'm sorry, like I don't have the kid yet. Maybe that'll change. Maybe I won't be able to say that out loud. But what I want to get back to is that the kid that doesn't have the natural ability but will outwork everyone else, I think most likely is the one that will end up winning, right? Because I needed to adjust and say, I'm allowed to have 80% of the information and still take action, knowing it's imperfect, but I take action anyways. And then based on that action, I will get feedback. And then I can make those micro tweaks that we were talking about, right? In the game, right? Adjust the racket, the angle, the power, right? Make those micro adjustments along the way, right? I think getting away from the extremes, we do better, right? Because I think there's a lot of pressure when it's phrased perfect action makes perfect, right? Well, what's perfect action, right? Who gets to define that, right? And who sets that tone, right? It could be relative, right? It's as we were saying, the score is the what, right? That's just objective, right? But then there's the whole subjective experience, right? Where are you enjoying it, right? What's your why, right? They say winners and losers have the same goal, right? So it's not the goal that differentiates who wins or loses. It's the work, it's the effort, it's the see leading up to it. Who was most consistent in alignment in those actions towards that why, right? Makes that it is usually who determines who wins, right? Not the guys that were working out 4 days a week and then party 2 days a week and then went to play on Sundays and half-assed it. I don't know if there are any teams there, but again, I think there's that gray area, right? Now we're circling back to it on this side is that there's a lot of that gray area, and I think that people need to be given more empowerment and support to take the imperfect action, right? Because making it perfect puts a lot of pressure, and usually you second guess yourself, right? A few of the errors that I made playing the game was when my instinct was going for one shot and then I second guessed it and went for another. It was the same the studies show in school, right? What were those bubble in uh, tests?
Scantron.
The scantrons, there we go, those things, right? They would say 90% of the time, if you marked your first one, that was the right answer. And they would study this and they would say, oh no, that wasn't my answer. And then you change it. 95% of the time, your first answer was the right one. So yeah, I just think it just needs to be said out loud. I think society puts a lot of pressure in how we need to do things, right? But when your why is strong, you are impervious to whether it's right or wrong action, right? Imperfect or perfect. And you just take it, right? It's what's for you, it's what serves you. It's either going to give you feedback that you're doing it right or not. But yeah, I wanted to say that out loud. I think there's more people that need to hear that, right? Because if not, they might just get frozen and not take any action because they're like, shit, well, I don't know what perfect practice is. I don't have the right instructor. I don't have the right coach. I don't have the right mentor. And then, well, I guess it's not for me. No, no, no. Please, imperfect action executed consistently will outbeat perfect action executed inconsistently. So I think that the shift is who can be consistent the longest. And normally being consistent the longest is tied to the why, right? If your why is strong enough, all your actions will be aligned with it. You will be consistent and you will show up every day because your why is that fire. It is the reason for turning the key on in the morning to turn the car on. Your why is that spark. And that spark, when it's strong, I mean, everything can be fuel to support that.
Yeah. You said outwork, I think. You said the word outwork. And we talk about that a lot. Sometimes we talk about like if you said, well, we lost the game today, what happened? You might say I got outplayed. We were outplayed. But we don't talk about just in the training aspect. Like I'm going to put in the reps and I'm going to outplay. It's the work. But I think there's opportunity there to if we're talking about a sport, right? And when we go out and we just participate in the sport, we're playing the sport. We're not working the sport, right? We're out there, we're playing. It's play, and I think I just come back to that. I highlight that because that's one of my values. It's one of my core things is play. And
Yeah,
we
me too.
turn play into work. Right? And I wonder if there's opportunity to do the opposite and turn work into play just by reframing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And and I think there's this element also of, 2 things that we kind of we polarize them. We put on 2 ends of a spectrum, competition and collaboration. But in competition, in a team sport, we're collaborating with our team to compete against the other. And so we're playing, right? Or we're working well together, playing well together to compete. And I think there's parallels in that as well, that I think we focus a lot more on competition. And I mean, that's where we started even, right? We started with competition was what grows us, and overlook that, uh, and it's, I don't know, it's a little bit different in an individual sport like tennis, I think.
Mhm,
I'm not sure what collaboration, looks like as much, it's swimming and cross country and all of these kinds of sports where it's a team, but it's kind of an individual sport within
mhm, mhm.
that team construct.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, that's my theme for next year is collaboration. I'm all about one of my good friends about a year ago had a saying, anything worth doing is worth doing with other people. And so I'm looking for opportunities to, like this podcast, for example. I started a podcast a year and a half ago, and I found it was, I love the conversations, but then I was thinking about it before and after by myself, right? I didn't have that.
Mhm,
And as that interaction, that feedback, that cooperation, that collaboration, that participation with others. And I think especially in the some of the circles we're in where there are probably a lot of people who are whether they call themselves it or not, they're kind of lone wolves, right? And it's lonely at the top. But it's also lonely at the bottom if you're if you're doing, it's not just lonely at the top, it's lonely at the bottom if you're doing something just by yourself, and especially as an extrovert. And it changes the vibe, the feeling, the it makes it a lot more sustainable, and able to build that momentum because, I'm not sitting down with, having each time with, like, as the host, having a
mhm,
conversation where, like, it's not a friendly, just a familiar vibe, right? I
mhm,
may have a
mhm,
guest back on my own podcast, but it's not this free flowing conversation. It's like an interview, and no one loves like consistently going to job interviews, even or interviewing people because it's more one sided. It's not even, it's not back and forth in a flow, so
yeah.
that's what I'm really focusing on going into next year as much as possible. Like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is why I want to do it. And then who am I going to do it with?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Right. I wrote down the saying, right? Anything worth doing is worth doing together. It's part of what I preach to people is life is better when shared together, right? Because you can have put X for whatever it is, your favorite car, your favorite plane, your favorite boat, your favorite mountain, right? To snowboard down or whatever. And but if you're the only person in this world, I mean, I always allude to a car, right? Or right now, planes is a big thing for me, right? And it'd be the most badass jet. I mean, the thing just roars, glides, and just takes off easy. And it's like, but like after day two, day three, I'd be like, I'd look around and be like, I don't have anybody to take with me. I don't have anybody to look at their face when like we go full power and be like, oh, and then you look at each other and you're like, oh my gosh. And then and so it's, it's, it's a beautiful thing, right? What you're going after. And I think that's why there's something really magical here is that this is like play for us. We enjoy sharing the inquisition, the different perspective, and it's just natural, right? And people lean into that, right? Because they can just feel the energy is just is unguarded, right? It's there. Everybody can see it, they can feel it, and that lets people lean in, right? And say there are these very humble connections with kindred spirits, and it could still be posted out for the world to see, right? It doesn't have to be done in private, at your house, or wherever it is. we can share these conversations and these dialogues and let people gain perspective, gain insight, and yeah, learn to play more in life, right? Where you get to enjoy what you're doing. It just things flow easier. The universe and actually the studies do show, right? They say that, the is it the 10,000 rule or the 10,000 hours, right? To master something. Um, and I'm probably going to quote the number wrong, but the 10,000 rules hours, 10,000 hours to be able to master something, right? But the studies show if you can do it in a playful manner, the actual training, those 10,000 hours, you probably can master that skill in maybe 1,000 hours or 2,000. So 20%. I think it might even be max up to 30% of the original amount of time needed and energy, you can master that same skill, right? So whenever I'm looking to accomplish something, if I could turn it into a game and I say, okay, I wanna see those marks and I go old school, little whiteboard erase thing, and I put it on the wall and I'm like, every time I do something and I mark it, I'm like, ooh, I want to get to 10. Ooh, I want to get to 100. And you gamify it. It's instinctive for us, right? Whether the kid is at the front of your mind or not, the kid is in there and the kid loves to play, right? And when you can turn things into a game, it just makes it that much more exciting because there's this element of, ooh, is it gonna happen? Is it not? Where when we say competition, it's like, my gosh, you just hear that word and it's like competition. And it's like, oh, it just feels heavy. My shoulders, I just want to sink into the chair. And I'm like, collaboration. I'm getting the juices. So and it's just such a beautiful thing because what's changed? The framing, the perspective, how you choose to look at what you're going after can totally change the vibe and the energy of the fulfillment of the journey, right? Oh no, it's a competition. I'm a coach, you're a coach, and we're just gonna out coach each other, right? We're just gonna go out there or I'm a coach, you're a coach, we can collaborate and share our experiences and give kind of two sides of the same coin. We can give the full 360 analysis because I see this from Fort Lauderdale, you see this from Denver, and we could just give that much more perspective. And I think the world is really leaning into this because in a world where everything's going digital, where everything is going AI, right now, people are really valuing authenticity in the videos, in the presentations, in the events, anything that can just really be this. Like nobody could watch this video and be like, I think those are AI. Those look like just bots having conversations. No, you can't. The universe is too magically beautiful to be able to mimic magic. Robots can do things incredibly well, but what you and I can do here is magic. And robots will never be able to do that. And people crave seeing the spark of magic. And that's what we're providing is just giving that opportunity, showing that it's there and that it should be celebrated. So there should be more play. It comes from play, right? Magic comes from play. When you play, you watch Harry Potter. I mean, it's all inquisitive, the curiosity. That's where the magic is. And that's where the smiles come out. And that's where people want to collaborate more instead of compete. So,
Yeah. I was thinking, you reminded me of the subtle body language distinction and differentiation that I often used as a soccer referee when competition versus collaboration, right? So I have a coach, arms in the air, screaming on the sideline, and walk over slowly and then turn next to them, shoulder to shoulder. We both face the field, and turn to him on my side and say, "Coach," versus
Mm,
face to face,
yeah, yeah.
where it's a competition. It's me versus you, right? And I even prefer when we go out to dinner to sit shoulder to shoulder with someone rather than across from them at a table if possible. And we're seeing the same thing, especially if we're going to talk about something that's a little heavier.
Love
And I
it.
was just thinking, when you talked about AI and when we think about social media, I wonder how that also plays into our mind of the talking head facing us versus videos that are POV, point of view, where we're seeing what they see, and if there's a subtlety there that we like those more when we're seeing
Hmm.
what the person sees rather than when we're face to face with someone and there's a subtle uh competition there.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. That's interesting perspective. I haven't thought about the sitting next to somebody to see what they're seeing, and then instead of a face to face, normally, I guess the idea was always face to face. You can really lean in. I think there's ways to win on both sides of that, right? Because people are very uncomfortable just looking at the eyes, right? One of the exercises we did at one of the regional events was just sit in front of somebody that you've just met and stare into their eyeball for like 3 minutes straight. No looking away, no nothing. And it was intense. I think that there was quite a bit of a challenge there. And I will say that I have explored this, right? So on my YouTube, right, Conquer Your Minds, I found the function on my Samsung that did the dual record. It's a new thing for this phone, right? So it can record with both cameras actively. So I will do the talking head video, but you can see also what I'm looking at. So when I'm walking on this trail, you're seeing me saying it, but I think that there's also a bit of magic in seeing what I'm seeing. This is the trail that I'm walking on. I get to take you along for the adventure that I'm going on, right? It's where some of my best thoughts and revelations come from. I mean, it's part of the vaulted ceilings theory, right? The unlimitedness of the sky creates this expansiveness and some of my best thoughts. So yeah, I think that there's ways to win on both sides, right? People want to see the face. They want to distinguish that it's a real person, that they're not just taking advice from a voice or a sound. And then, yeah, there could be something about taking somebody along for the journey and showing them what you're seeing and getting side by side with them and seeing what they see. I think that that's a really great key point to lean into is that whenever you're having an issue with somebody, and I love it because you bringing it up as a referee, I felt what you did. You said when you walk up to the coach and stand side by side, I felt that. I imagined it. And I think that it's one of the greatest tools for maybe a debate, right? Or a discussion, right? But sometimes discussions turn into debates where it's so easy to go at somebody and attack them with what your goal is or what your interest is. But if you can, right, if somebody cuts me off on the road, it's easy for me to just yell at them and be like, stupid, why didn't you look? You didn't put on a turn signal. And I could easily throw all of that onto them. But if I were just for a second, selflessly take a second and put myself in their shoes and just say, I wonder what was happening to them. Why did they need to do that? Is it that they really wanted to do that? Was that their intention to just say, I want to swerve this Prius and make him brake harder for a second? Or maybe he just realized that he was going to miss the stop because his child is waiting and he didn't want to leave them outside the school with nobody picking them up. Or, I mean, it could be hundreds of thousands of reasons, right? But if we just take a second selflessly to put ourselves side by side with them, see what they're seeing, it's so much easier to empathize with them and just say, it happened. I don't have control over it. Only thing I have control over is how I react. Me yelling at them is not going to change their reality. They are just going to keep driving and going about their thing. They don't care, right? We're all so busy that it's challenging to have to think about it for everybody. So why let them take my peace? If I put myself in their shoes, I can allow myself to not be disturbed. So I think that's a really great way to put it as a referee, you being that middleman negotiator. You're looking to just make sure and facilitate everybody having a good time within the boundaries pre-elected for the event, what is okay, what is not, and you looking to just make sure that everybody can collaborate and having a good time, where some people of course will just see the competition of it, but you're looking to just be the collaborator and help say, hey, we all just want to have fun. We started this probably because we love this. Now you maybe get to a competitive level, then it's a bit more competition, but it's still a game, right? We're just big kids kicking around a ball, right? Trying to get it into this beautiful rectangle, right? The circle into the rectangle, right? I mean, come on, this is one of the most ancient games there is available to us. So let's just have some fun to it. And you're looking to facilitate that, which is, I think, beautiful, plays into what you're doing. What I'm doing as well is just getting people to play more, right? How can they tap into what lights them up, what excites them, right? I've been playing volleyball now and we play it 4-on-4s, and some people are like, oh, well, that's not the real thing. You got to do 2-on-2s and stuff. And it's like, depends what your goal is, right? If I want to go more in community and playing with people, and it's a lot more fun, right? Where it's just 2-on-2. Yeah, it's a hell of a lot more of a workout, right? And yeah, there's needs to be more technique and everything involved, but the studies show that it's not the drinker versus the non-drinker that will outlive. It's community over vices, right? You could have, right, the blue zones in Italy or in Greece, right? They drink, they smoke, they dance, they sing, they play, they do all of it, right? Versus somebody that's like, no, I'm going to hit all the marks. I don't drink anything. My carbs, my protein, my fat are all perfect. I have my aura ring. My sleep score is in the knees every day. But if they don't have anybody to share with, they don't have any community, they for sure will die first. So again, finding a way to always circle it back to the why. What is your why for what you're doing? And I don't think most people ask enough to themselves, let alone to anybody else. Why? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this like this? Why do you choose to line it up like this instead of like this? And if we just start asking that question more and know what our why is, our big why, right? What's that target that we're shooting for? It's so easy to get all of the smaller actions in alignment, and then that's what leads to greatness. And we are early in our stages of greatness, but we are going to reach it because our why is strong, right? We want to motivate, we want to inspire, we want to show others that they have the capacity to do the same, right? It's not a me versus you. Ooh, I'm better than you. No, I'm just one magical reflection. You're another magical reflection. Let's show others that they can also do the same if they choose to be bold and go after it. But why not? Right? This is all we got. This is the life.
That's right. We model what we preach, as they say, right? It's coincidental. I actually just drafted something yesterday that starts by saying, "I walk the talk. I train, I recover, play, and live with intention. Health and fitness aren't theories to me; they're daily practices. I pursue purpose-driven work, real connection, and epic experiences. I play every day. I chase annual misogis, design my life around adventure, not escape from it. I believe community compounds faster than effort. My network is my net worth. I help men by modeling what's possible and revealing what's holding them back, physically, purposefully, and through play. I don't motivate from the sidelines. I lead from the field."
Wow. Drop the mic, man. That's wow. Beautiful, powerful, and not coincidentally very synchronized and very on point, beautifully captured for who you are, what you represent, what you're doing, and which is why I'm so grateful to be and honored to be doing this with you, right? Being a different magical version of the Michael with three first names. I finally found my brother from another mother. and and yeah, I mean, that's it. And that for me, this year was my main goal was becoming the most authentic version of myself, fully embracing and leaning into all of the magic, loving every bit of who I am first, right? Because it's taken a long time to reverse this love for others above love for myself, right? People talk about you got to put the mask on yourself first before you can help others. Well, this was a year of me practicing that, my mask, right? And why have I been doing that? So that next year continuing to build and expand my brand awareness is my main goal. Just getting myself out there in front of as many people is so that when they see how authentically I do it as you do, right? Because that's the last saying, I really love it. You don't lead from the side. How was it? You don't lead from the sidelines. You lead from the field. You don't coach from the sidelines. You lead from the field.
I don't motivate from the sidelines. I lead from the field.
Yeah. I think that that's really important, right? That imperfect action, the key word is action. You are taking action the same way here as we are on the field playing it. What ends up happening, right? If there's a soccer field somewhere and one person goes out there with a soccer ball, right? It's a big soccer field and one person's out there. Maybe nothing happens. But then a second person goes out there and it's like, oh, hey, I want to kick the ball with you. Ooh, all of a sudden, start kicking the ball back and forth. Then all of a sudden, two, three more people start coming, and then more people want to jump in. So this is the power of collaboration, right? The more that we bring this in and the more that we exude this authenticness and lead from the field, the more that people want to join in and do the same and be that leader of the field for their family, for their community, for their circle, and not be afraid to stand out, right? One of my favorite, yeah, one of the great books that I've read was was it Winners and Losers by Brian Tracy. I'm losing the title right now. He says losers will break their promises to keep their personality. Winners will break their personality to keep their promises, right? So sometimes we get caught up in the identity of who we are and how people remember us, because at any given point in time, there's 1,000 versions of you or 100,000 versions of you and 100,000 versions of me. Depending on where I met people in my life, people remember me for different things, right? We spoke about this on the phone last night. When you talk to somebody a year later, you're thinking about the person you last saw, but the person that picks up the phone is all of a sudden a different person. If we don't get tied up on how people remember us, right? Because that's per se our personality, right? And we say, well, no, I can reinvent myself every day, every moment that I need to. Yes, yesterday I was the person that was coaching this. Today I decide that what's best for me is to coach this, right? Or whatever that subject or change is for each person. That's much more powerful, saying, I don't care what people remember me or what they last saw of me. I'm willing to change and adjust. Right now, we do full circle, those little micro tweaks. You get the feedback, you go out, you take action, imperfect action in the world, you get feedback, and then you go tweaking and you go adjusting and you do those. So you can keep reinventing yourself every day. And that's because your why is so strong, right? That's what makes a winner, right? Is constantly retweaking and changing. Ooh, I used to do it like this. I used to serve like this, and I used to, right? But if we just focus on what's best now, not relation to our past, not relation to our future, what we have now, what is the best decision, the best technique? What's the culmination of all the experience that I have? What's the best way to put it out to the world now? And end of question.
Yeah, I forget if we spoke about that. I think the context really is important, and I think I was thinking this earlier, like the having curiosity with the context,
Mhm.
because in this, what you're saying, I think people get stuck sometimes trying to figure out the best way as if there's one best way, right? And the best way that an individual can do a thing is arguably most authentically. And so it's not a question, it's actually not an external question. What is the optimal way? We're not optimizing, right? Because the optimal way you might hate and you're never going to put in the reps. It's not going to feel like play. It's going to feel like I should be doing this way versus I really enjoy doing it this way. And I don't really care whether it's the best, most optimal way to get to this destination because I'm enjoying the journey. Right. And you're open, I think, then if you're leading with what feels authentic, what feels like play, what feels light versus heavy, right? You're gonna have exponential gains because you're going to there's not gonna be that drag, right? It's removing the drag, not trying to narrow and optimize and these things that again, that those feel heavy to me, like those words,
Yeah.
like how do we know, especially when we talk about brand building and now inevitably that for most people connotes social media and we don't have control of we put something out there and then the big media companies, right, dictate where who sees it, what reach it gets. And, we can pay them, we can bribe them to show it to more people, right? But it's like the overlord who's saying, "Oh, you have 2,000 friends? Well, we're just gonna show it to 100 of them repeatedly. You're never gonna have that reach unless you give us this tax," you
You
know?
bribe us. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't wanna derail this. I do think, I wanna wrap up for today, and I think you hinted to something that I was thinking we could talk about next time, especially this time of year, timely. sort of a reflection on the last year, themes from this year, lessons learned, and wins and losses, and then what we're how we're taking those, digesting those into 2026, which is just a few days away. And I just wanted to say back to refereeing for a minute because it's been such a big part of my life. Two things that I learned very, very early on, two kind of quotes, is expect the unexpected. And that's one of the beautiful things about the game of soccer, I think, is that there on any day, either team could win, and it's not as predictable going in that the dominant team will end up the victor on that day. And so it goes beyond just winning and losing, but I think it's something to think about in a lot of areas of life. Expect the unexpected in a beautiful way, right? Don't end
Yeah.
with an expectation of what it's going to look like. And then the other is the curiosity of the context. That's sort of my phrasing more than something I was told, but I think what that looks like specifically and succinctly is you often see in sports reactions that seem out of place. A player reacting to a referee call, or a coach like going crazy on the sideline, and not just in soccer, in basketball and football, and
Hmm.
like, and unless you're an avid fan of that sport and of that team, you might think, what's the big deal? It's just a little, one play, what's the big deal? But I've been a soccer referee, of college referee for over a decade or over 2 decades, and in not as much at the pros because the pro, and I mean it depends, actually, depending on how long the contract is and how good or bad the team's playing, but their contracts are sometimes a bit more secure. But at the college level, there's a lot of changes, and I mean the coaches who make it for decades have done something really, really special. But the athletic director can fire coaches, I think, a lot easier at the collegiate level, especially. And so when the coach is going berserk over a throw-in at midfield, where you're like, "What's the deal, coach? It's just a throw-in at midfield." And you don't realize that before that game, the athletic director came into his office because they're, 500, and if he has one more season because he's on the bubble, right? And then he's fired, right? He's lost his job. He's lost his
Hmm.
being able to provide food and pay the mortgage for his family, right? And so that throw in means it could lead to a goal, which would lead to a loss, which would lead to a losing season, which would lead to him losing his job. And so
Hmm.
that's what's at stake. And when you zoom out and you appreciate, even though this is a game, even though this is play, even though this is a hobby for me, I just go out and enjoy this activity, there's a lot more at stake. And I think I was thinking this when we were talking about someone cutting you off on the highway and what's going on in their world, in their mind, in their life, right? That led to that decision. If we hold space for that, and have an opportunity to understand the context of how people are making decisions, curiosity instead of criticism, or instead of seeing it from our perspective, really, again, shoulder to shoulder with them, as opposed
Hmm.
to looking at them from a critical standpoint, there's a lot of opportunity for a better outcome, I think, right?
Yeah. 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 I think most of us were never told it's an option that we can default our thinking to the positive, right? If we don't know why the person did it, it's not like they told us, they send us a message, right? I used to think about that. I was like, what if there was like inter-car communication? You can like, instead of just a honk, you don't know what is the honk. Is the honk a good honk, a bad honk? Is it hey, but so, but it was at one of the meetings, and this is where again the tribe, the community that you surround yourself with, really determines how high you go, right? If you're okay being the smallest person in the room, walking into these big rooms, you can learn and grow the most, right? And yeah, it was. I think it was the first time, yeah, I'd actually met a billionaire, right? Like seeing him in person. right? Actually hear him talk and he one of his things was he always defaults to the positive, right? He thinks if he doesn't know why somebody did something, he defaults it to the positive. Where our fear and animal based cognitive logic would be on the negative, right? It was an attack, right? Because fear and you got to be ready to fight for battle, fight or flight. You can just default to the positive and say, and maybe it's because they remembered their favorite food spot was at that stop, and if they missed it, they weren't going to be able, there was no exit for another 10 miles, and you know, whatever it is, or maybe they were about to shit their pants, right? I mean, anything like this, and then all of a sudden you think it's okay that he cut me off, right? Like it's just how we perspect it. Do we give ourselves a chance? Can we hold the space for others and just realize that we're all in this life for similar reasons, to get out there and enjoy it the best we can. Well, not nobody, but most don't wake up with the intention to do harm to others. We all just want to live our happy lives. And if we could do it without pissing anybody else off along the way, I think we're doing great. Be authentic, be you. Nobody cares. Nobody's going to watch and focus, and it's not going to make a difference. Only if you allow it to make a difference. Right. So, like you said, what's the best way is the most sustainable way, right? Sustainable sounds light, right? Where it's like, no, what's the most efficient way? What's the most optimized? It's like, oh my gosh, feel like you're just digging in. It's like, no, what's the most sustainable? Well, that sounds a lot better, right? Because that means you could be consistent. That means that it's right. And I'll look to circle it, right? So we can finish it. But I did my DEXA scan, right, to find out the body fat. And I was talking with the owner, and he was there with his wife working there. He was originally a respiratory doctor, like chronic respiratory problems. And I was speaking with them. And of course, there's a lot of conversation, right? The art of longevity and biohacking and all of this. And it was really awesome because when I was talking with the wife, I was like, man, it's pretty cool that you guys both enjoy this and you guys can do this, collaborate and do this together, do this work together. She's like, yeah, she's like, it's really great stuff and improving quality of life and lowering the visceral fat, measuring all these markers. She's like, but she's like, I'm more an 85-15, where my husband's more 90-10, right? And it's like, and she's like, yeah, she's like, I do 85% of the things that I know are best, right? And I can keep at that. That's their sustainable RPM, right? Where he can sustain it at 90, right? Or not even sustain, but it's yeah, he can sustain it at 90 and it feels good for him, right? If it feels good, then keep at it, right? So we just got to find where our spot is, what is most sustainable. And normally, the more alignment it is to your why, to your purpose, to what you came here for in this life, it's more sustainable. And you could take on more losses and more adversity because your why is strong enough and you know the outcome is worth the effort and the journey. So,
Yeah, well, I want to dive into that a lot more next time because I think we are doing it, right? We're doing it. And I think I want to talk about what your coaching looks like and my coaching looks like. And I'll just tease it a bit right now that this word longevity, I think, like, has potential to be really light and exciting, but it's becoming this new field of sometimes I feel like it's exhausting with all of the, it's where fitness was a couple decades ago, where there's just more and more products and shoulds, right? And you should be doing
mm,
this. And, how often should you get a DEXA and what supplements and what practices? And it takes the fun out of it, you know? And ultimately, we're just trying to live better longer. That's what longevity, I think, generally is about, whether it's lifespan or health span or as I call it, fit span. But I bring it back. It's so hard to focus on something so in the future, hopefully, right? Like
Mhm,
the end of our life, right? And so
mhm,
I reframe it with for myself and with people I work with for what do you want to do more of? And then let's make that more accessible to do that longer. Right. If you love to play tennis and not make you a better tennis player, but make you able to play tennis for a few decades longer than you would be able to otherwise. And that starts now. That doesn't start when you're 50,
mhm.
right? Or 60, like to be able to play into your 70s and 80s. It starts now and it's a sustainable process that you can just incorporate into what you're already doing. And it will probably make you a better tennis player. But that's not the outcome that you're
Yes.
chasing, right? That's just the happy byproduct.
Mhm.
And
Love it.
my my slogan is stay and play. And I was just thinking, it came to mind. I don't know how this will weave in or incorporate in, but there was those commercials. Dos Equis beer had commercials that said stay thirsty, my friends, right? And I thought our slogan could be something like stay playful, my friend.
Stay playful. I love it. Stay playful, my friends.
I'm not sure
Yeah.
we're the most interesting men in the world, but as he says, right, this is the most interesting man in the world. But
I
um,
think we're up there. I think we're up there. I think you and I unique enough and then together again, just expanding, right? And playing off of each other. I
yeah,
think definitely we're up there in the most interesting men in the world. Let's keep playing with it and having fun with it and it will fulfill itself, right? For sure.
that's right. That's right. Well, I'm gonna sign off today with this new slogan. I don't know if it'll stick, but this is yeah, this was a great conversation. Michael Brian David, thank you very much as always. And any closing thoughts for today?
I think you said it best. Stay playful, my friends. Life is better when we're playing. So as long as you can find the fun in it, it doesn't matter what the end result is, you will enjoy the moment. That's all we got.
Beautiful. Stay playful, my friends.
Stay playful, my friends. Take care of yourself.
You too.